How do you feel when you watch and listen to that? Do you feel reassured? Are you someone that's a victim of this horrendous abuse, a survivor of this horrendous abuse? Are one of your loved ones affected by this? Do you sit there and feel reassured as you join me, Michelle Dewberry, here on Jubes & Co tonight? Are you positive about what you've just heard from our government or not? Do you just think more words, more tough talk? What we need is more and more action. There were many promises just made there from the Home Secretary. We'll look at some of those and see whether or not we have faith into whether or not we think some of those things will come into fruition and, crucially, make a difference. Alongside me for the next hour, I've got my panel, Ben Habib, the former co-deputy leader of Reform UK, and Scarlett Maguire, the former Labour advisor. Good evening to both of you, but crucially, good evening to each and every single one of you at home, and Happy New Year. It's good to be back. I want to involve you very much in the conversation that we are having tonight, and you can get in touch with me all the usual ways. You can email gbviews@gbnews.com. You can tweet or X me at gbnews, or of course you can go to the website gbnews.com/your-say. Let me start with you, Ben Habib. We've just been listening intently to the conversation in the Commons there. What do you make to it?
So, if I can start with what she didn't say. What she didn't say, and what she was reluctant to concede, was an inquiry. What she didn't say was that the people that turned a blind eye already to this, of which we are abundantly aware now as a result of excerpts from various court cases, that they would be held to account. And the reason she didn't say that is because if you look back and you follow the trajectory of this abhorrent series of crimes that has taken place across the United Kingdom, what you will see is the pattern of communities repeatedly turning a blind eye to this criminality. You will see the exposing of multiculturalism gone completely wrong. You will see the exposing of the regulatory and legislative framework which has created two-tier justice in this country revealed completely, because the police were fearful of tackling these people for fear of being accused of being racist. The social services were fearful of doing it. Local councils were fearful of doing it. Some of these girls were trafficked in councils. She talked about forward-looking laws where they would make it an aggravated crime if they were groomed. They would make it illegal to be complicit in this activity. That it's already illegal to be complicit in the gang rape of little girls. It's already illegal. And I will go further, by the way, than the Conservative Party. I would say we don't need an inquiry into this. What we want is a dedicated unit of the police to have powers of arrest and detention, to weed out those who turned a blind eye to this activity in their own police forces, in social services, in councils and so on, and to arrest them and to hold them to account. That's the first thing. The other thing I want the government to admit is that we're having all this debate about the revelation of ethnicities because multiculturalism in this country is not working. If we had a unified, integrated culture and we hadn't had mass immigration in the way that we've had, we wouldn't be having debates about the ethnicity of people who are committing crimes in this country. That's the second thing. The third thing is we need to abolish the legislative and regulatory framework of diversity, equity and inclusion. It is damaging to our criminal justice system, it's damaging to our country economically, it's damaging to our country from a security perspective. It has to go. And unless politicians recognise that you do not get a functioning society through progressive discrimination, we will never get the United Kingdom back to a place where actually justice will be applied blindly. So, yes, she made some forward-looking declarations about how things may be tackled in the future, but she won't have the courage to look at what's happened in the past, because it will reveal multiple failings of 27 years of bad government.
There you go. Scarlett Maguire, Happy New Year to you. Your thoughts on what you just heard?
Well, I want to talk about, I don't want to make it political. I want to talk about how awful it's been, one of the reasons, I mean, when Keir Starmer was Director of Public Prosecutions, he was in charge of it. That's when it first came up properly. from 2009, and he is the first person to admit that he looked at it the wrong way. And one of the reasons is...
Well, that's all right then.
What?
That's all right then.
No, I'm not saying anything. I was trying to explain what happened. Is the real problem? So we can try and turn it into a political thing, or we can say how did we change? What went wrong, and how did we change it? And one of the things that was wrong, which the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, is the victims were not seen as credible, and that's what has changed. Is that what they've understood is that you can't say, look. If you look at rape cases, 1.5% of recorded rape cases go to court. And that's because the victims are not considered credible. They don't think that they're going to win, right? So, and actually, that's what was happening here. And what happened was it changed. And it changed because a new guy came into the Northern Prosecution Service and he looked at it. And actually, he was a member of an ethnic minority. And he looked at it and he said, this is really going on, and we have to change it. And what really bothers me is instead of thinking about how are we going to stop it, what about these victims? What about the young women who are still suffering, and many probably have still not come forward, because the thing about rape victims is they often take a very long time to come forward, so that we don't know the thing. But actually, Ben, you talk about, that it's all about ethnicity and multiculturalism. The data that came out in November, the ethnic data, showed that the victims were 85% white, but the perpetrators were 83% white.
The protection given to those from ethnic minorities is born out of a legislative and regulatory framework which positively discriminates in their favour and prohibits those that are charged with the responsibility of holding them to account from doing their job. We've seen it in spades, year in, year out, Scarlett. We have
Ben,
a racist...
Let's talk about what's really going on.
I want to talk about it.
Let's talk about men who exploit young women, who take the most vulnerable women and rape them. That's what I want to talk about.
Well, I want to spend between now and 7 o'clock focusing very much on this issue. One of the things, I've been watching this all unfold over the last few days, one of the things that I've been a little bit unhappy about, I must confess, is how many people have actually been using this topic. It's great that it's under the spotlight again, by the way, I applaud that. But so many people in my mind have been using this topic as a way of, getting attention for themselves, furthering their own agenda, whether that's a political one, a journalistic one, or whatever. You've had whistleblowers kind of arguing with each other about who was the first one to speak, and journalists, well, I wrote this first, no, you wrote this first. Do you know what? Pack it in, the lot of you. It's not about you. It's not about your egos. It's not about billionaires. It's about the girls, the very young girls that have been tortured often to within an inch of their life and sometimes beyond that point. And I just want to remember those people and bring one of them into the conversation tonight. Someone I admire very much, Sammy Woodhouse. Take a listen.
Real. This happened. So I think you all need to take into consideration, when you're turning this all into your politics, of what we're actually going through. We as the victims, the survivors, the families, as per usual, politicians make it about them. And it's always been about them. Children like me were sacrificed for votes. And not over the last few days either, for decades.
Sacrificed for votes. There'll be some of you that don't understand the Northern accent, but sacrificed for votes. I want to ponder that conversation after the break. We'll return to it. Hopefully you will too. Me. So many people getting in touch. The main conversation that people are having today is about these so-called grooming gangs, rape gangs, abuse gangs, torture gangs in some cases, you disgusting people. Anthony says that all of this is too little, too late. All of this conversation, he says, sack the establishment, each and every single one of them. He says, Ruth, very angry with Keir Starmer, saying that he's not fit to be the Prime Minister. He's made some comments today about the far right. Worry not, we'll come on to that a little bit later on into the programme. So many people just saying repeatedly over and over again, we want a national inquiry, we want an independent inquiry. You're not trusting what you're calling the establishment figures to be able to carry out those inquiries. There's a lot of anger today. There's a lot of fury today. We've just seen the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, she's just taken to the floor in the Commons, talking very, very tough. I've got to say, she also seems quite angry about the whole situation. She was saying now new measures to make it mandatory to report abuse. She wants grooming to be an aggravating factor when it comes to the sentences that some of these people are getting. She was talking about new guidelines for the police and also online clampdown. She's talking about new victim and survivor panel. And this is one of my concerns. In all of this, there's been so much bickering and falling out, and I worry a little bit that too many people are using this for their own means. So I do just want to remind ourselves, again, of the victim that we've just heard from before the break, because I want to explore the point that she makes. She feels she was sacrificed, and people like her, for votes.
Real. This happened. So I think you all need to take into consideration, you know, when you're turning this all into your politics, of what we're actually going through. You know, we as the victims, the survivors, the families, as per usual, politicians make it about them. And it's always been about them. Children like me were sacrificed for votes. And not over the last few days either, for decades.
I respect Sammy very much, I've got to say. She's a very brave woman, especially given what she's been through. When she says that she feels like she and people like her have been sacrificed for votes, do you share that sentiment, Ben?
I'm sure. I'm sure that they're being sacrificed for votes. And we see it increasingly as the ethnicity of the United Kingdom changes. The agenda put forward by various parties and representatives of those parties standing for election changes. You know, it's a component of democracy, isn't it? As a specific minority grows, you'll pander to that minority. And that's one of the other problems that we've got in the United Kingdom, a re-emergence of sectarian politics. We'd successfully got rid of it, and now it's back with a vengeance, and back with the protective blanket, as I say, of the legislative framework, which progressively discriminates in favour of these minorities. I just want to correct Scarlett on one statistic. One of my advisors has texted me, and he said that if you look at paedophilia on an individual basis, it breaks down roughly the way you described it, Scarlett, with the 85% of the white population in this country committing 85% of the crimes. But if you look at gang rapes of girls, which is actually what we're talking about, crime, yeah. It's 85% British Pakistani ethnic background, 85%.
But I do think that any sort of child
about.
Sexual exploitation is wrong.
Have you read the excerpts of any of these cases?
No,
Well, I highly recommend you do, because this is not just... paedophilia is horrendous. Rape is horrendous. This is torture of 11 to 13-year-old, or younger even, where they were gang raping them. Multiple men on little girls. It's absolutely disgusting. And it's not good enough just to have an inquiry. I reject the notion of an inquiry. I want a dedicated unit of the police force going out there without fear or favour and arresting everyone from social services, in councils, in their own police force, who turned a blind eye to this, because they are complicit. Some of these girls were traded in community centres. Did you know that? Traded in local councils.
No, Ben...
Yeah.
I think what happened was absolutely appalling.
But we need to shine a light on it. It needs to be revealed. People need to be held to account.
We also want to try and keep it out of politics, right? What we want to do...
Everything is in politics, Scarlett.
No, Ben...
The only way this is being... The reason there's a light being shone on it is because of the political domain.
No, I mean, actually, this has gone on... I mean... The Rochdale prosecutions began 10 years ago, right? I mean, many, many men have been prosecuted. It's not that they've been allowed to go. What happened before?
I'm talking about those who allowed it to continue. Sure, the actual perpetrators have been prosecuted. But how is it that they got away with it for so long? We need an open and honest discussion about that, and those who turn a blind eye need to be arrested and held to account. They need to face the full force of the law.
They need to be held to account. They need to be held to account. But actually, what we need to now do is to stop it. And things.
Sure, but you can only look forward with confidence if those who've committed crimes in the past are held to account. I cannot travel confidently looking forward if they're not taking account of what happened behind me.
So what we need to do is that we had a really good investigation. We had a commission of inquiry. It put up 20 recommendations, and none of them, even though it was cross-party, applauded when it happened, and nothing happened. And what we have to do is we have to make sure things happen. I think the police force have changed. I think there's absolutely no question. I know that the Department of Public Prosecutions have changed, and that
Scarlett, we've still got a two-tier police force, a two-tier criminal justice system. We saw it with the marches, the Palestinian marches. We saw it after the Southport protests.
Ben,
the way Keir Starmer got up and he politicised those who were protesting the grotesque death of 3 girls in Southport. He politicised all of it. He said they're far right. He threw the absolute. What's the proverbial? I'm losing my expression for a moment. But he threw the book at them. And he directed the courts to...
And in 2011, when there were riots in 2011 and he was DPP, he threw the book at them, right? He throws the book at rioters.
He called them far right.
Because...
And he called those who wanted inquiry far right this morning. He did.
No, he did not.
He called them far right.
Well, let's get to the bottom of this then. Let's get to the bottom of what Keir Starmer actually said about far right, because that is the next topic of conversation. I do just want to say thank you as well, Ben, for bringing up that point, because too often when we talk about this disgusting behaviour that has been occurring, we always hear this statistic, oh, well, most child abusers are white, so why are you focusing on the ethnicity? Because this is a very different and specific type of disgusting, disgraceful, systematic, planned, organised type of behaviour that is all over the place in this country. It is not unique to the pocket 6 towns, I think it was, that were in one of the key reports that you just mentioned. It is all over the place. This has been happening for decades and still, in some places, continues to happen. It's a very different type of thing and it needs to be called out exactly for being that different type of thing.